G'day, my name's Greg Newson. I'm a naturopath, herbalist and nutritionist. And today I would like to talk to you about something that I see quite often in clinic, and that is adrenal fatigue. And it tends to look like something like this. You wake up tired, you hit the wall in the afternoon, you rely on coffee to function, you feel fantastic one day and do a little bit of exercise or some gentle gardening, and then you can't get out of bed the next. Or you lie there at night staring at the ceiling even though you're tired and exhausted. Now, many of our patients have gone to the doctors and they've had a multitude of tests only to be told that everything is normal. So what we're looking at here is an overworked adrenal system. It's not that the adrenal glands are weak, broken or lazy, they're just overused. And with our modern lifestyle, that is very, very easy to do. So when someone comes into the clinic and says, I just can't get going in the morning, I'm so tired, I need coffee to feel human, my energy crashes around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm awake at 2 and I just lie there and I can't get back to sleep, I feel anxious quite often but I also can feel down, I crave salt or I get lightheaded when I stand. When I hear those typical symptoms, my mind goes straight to the person's stress load and the subsequent strain on the adrenal glands. Not because I'm trying to give adrenal fatigue a fashionable name, but because I see the same cluster of symptoms over and over again in people who have had prolonged stress and pressure. Now, many people have most probably heard of the adrenal glands, but really, what do they do? Well, they sit on top of your kidneys and they release hormones that help you respond to stress, regulate blood pressure, balance your fluids, and help maintain good energy throughout the day. Now, the two main hormones that people mainly hear about are adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline is your act now hormone. It's the immediate hormone. It increases your heart rate, sharpens your focus, raises your blood pressure, and gets you ready to move. Whereas cortisol is your longer acting stress hormone. It keeps your blood sugar stable, helps you wake up in the morning and gives you a more sustained energy to deal with life pressures. Now, these hormones are not bad, they're essential. They're designed to rise when you need them and fall once the stress has passed. The problem is, most people live with constant stress and the adrenals never really get a chance to switch off. I have this analogy that I explain to patients in clinic of what the adrenal glands do historically and what they do now and why they're so overworked. So imagine you're alive 200,000 years ago and you're walking through the bush, you're nice and relaxed, the birds are singing, the sky is blue, everything's great. And then all of a sudden, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the bush and lands right in front of you. A few things happen. First, your brain registers that you're in danger and sends a message to the adrenal glands, produce adrenaline. Then that adrenaline makes your heart pump stronger, your blood flows to your arms and your legs, and you become physically stronger. Your reflexes become more quick, if that's the right word, and sharper, I should say sharper, that might be a better word, and your senses are more in tune. Now, the body does this to prepare for one of two things. You're either going to run away or you're going to fight. That is called the flight-fight response. Now, in this case, regardless of what you choose, death is most probably the ultimate outcome. But let's pretend you got away from the saber-toothed tiger. Now, when your body knows you're out of danger, the adrenal glands produce cortisol, which buffers the toxic effects of adrenaline and helps calm you down. So, a couple of hours later, when you're sitting in the cave and you're telling anyone who will listen your heroic tale of avoiding or evading the tiger, your body is then calm and relaxed. Now, fast forward yourself to the 21st century. While there's no saber-toothed tigers, your body is constantly challenged by stressful situations. Right? So 200,000 years ago, you mightn't have met another saber-toothed tiger for another 3 weeks. No stress for 3 weeks. That'd be great. That would be fantastic. Now, let's go back to the 21st century. Now, we're constantly surrounded by challenges that increase our adrenaline and cortisol. For example, you turn on the news, bad story, up goes adrenaline. Someone cuts you off in traffic, your adrenaline rises. You're running late, adrenaline goes up. Big queues at the shopping centre, more adrenaline. Poor eating habits, adrenaline kicks the liver into releasing glucose. Too hot, too cold, more stress, more adrenaline. Violent or scary movies, big surge of adrenaline. Even things like watching your favourite sporting team on TV and they're losing increases adrenaline. Scrolling your phone late at night, constant notifications like emails and texts, work pressure, poor dietary habits, alcohol, cigarettes, medication, recreational drugs. All of these have the same reaction in the body. They increase adrenaline. And that's before we even factor in the financial stress, the relationship stress, running a business stress, looking after kids or elderly parents stress. This constant rise of adrenaline that goes on day after day can continue going on for year after year and decade after decade. But eventually your stress hormones stop rising and falling the way they're meant to. You don't feel alert in the morning. Your energy slumps in the afternoon. At night, your body is tired, but your mind won't shut down. Your body's trying to tell you that your stress system is overloaded. It hasn't been allowed to switch off and recover. And when that goes on long enough, things start to change. Not in a dramatic, overnight and obvious way, but in a subtle changes that people often miss or brush off. Your body starts to struggle to regulate things it used to handle easily, like energy, sleep, blood pressure, even fluid balance. And this is where some specific symptoms start to show up. Salt cravings and feeling dizzy. Now, salt cravings are an interesting one and they get missed all the time. When someone tells me that they're constantly reaching for salty foods or they feel lightheaded when they stand up, my mind goes straight to fluid balance and the adrenals. Because the adrenals don't just deal with cortisol and adrenaline, they also produce a hormone called aldosterone. And aldosterone's job is simple. It tells your kidneys how much sodium to hold on to and how much to let go. So wherever sodium goes, fluid follows. If you hold on to sodium, you hold on to fluid and your blood pressure stays stable. Healthy blood pressure keeps you feeling balanced when you stand up, move around and go throughout the day. But when there's stress, it's a different story. When you're under short-term stress, the body can handle it. But when stress becomes long-term, the body starts prioritizing survival over blood pressure balance. What happens is cortisol stays elevated, the nervous system stays switched on, and the fine control, like aldosterone regulation, starts to get disrupted. So instead of holding onto sodium properly, the body starts letting more of it go through the kidneys. Now you're losing sodium and fluid with it, which means your overall blood volume drops slightly. And this is where people notice it. They stand up and there's not quite enough blood pressure to push blood to the brain properly. So they get woozy, lightheaded, or they get, give me a second feeling. And at the same time, the body knows it's losing sodium. So it drives cravings specifically for salt because the body's trying to correct the problem. The body is basically saying, I need salt, give me salt. You can't stop me from eating salt. I need salt to survive. So you crave chips, salty foods, put salt on everything, and you may even just eat straight salt. Now, in clinic, when I see this pattern, salt cravings, dizziness when standing, low energy, it's a pretty strong sign the body isn't regulating fluids properly. So that brings us straight back to the adrenals because they're the ones meant to control that balance. Now, yes, in the short term, something simple as a pinch of good quality sea salt in water can help, and people will often feel better pretty quickly when they do that. But that's not fixing the underlying issue. That's just topping up what the body is losing. Usually what I do in clinic when someone is in this pattern, I support the adrenals directly. I'll use Naturopath adrenal support, typically 7.5 ml twice a day. And for that reason, it's pretty simple. We're helping restore the system that regulates sodium and fluid in the first place. So instead of constantly chasing salt, the body starts holding on to what it needs properly again. And that's when people stop feeling lightheaded and stop craving salt all the time and start to feel more steady on their feet and improve their energy throughout the day. Sleep as adrenal medicine. Now, sleep is probably one of the most underrated parts of adrenal recovery, but it's also the one that makes the biggest difference. Because nothing restores the body and the adrenals like proper deep sleep. The problem is, the very thing that burns the adrenals out in the first place, stress, is also the thing that stops people from sleeping. They get stuck in this loop. Now, to understand this properly, we need to look at what is meant to happen at night. During the day, cortisol is meant to be higher. That's what keeps you alert, focused, and able to get through the day. But as the evening comes around, cortisol should start to drop. And as that drops, melatonin, your sleep hormone, starts to rise. That shift allows the brain and the body to switch off, drifting into sleep. But when someone's constantly stressed, mental, emotional, or just constantly stimulated, that shift doesn't happen properly. Cortisol stays elevated, the brain stays switched on, and the body doesn't get the signals it needs to say it's time to sleep. People often say, I'm tired, but I just can't fall asleep. Or they lie there for an hour or two staring at their ceiling with their mind ticking over. It doesn't matter how many sheep they count. And then there's the other pattern I see all the time. People fall asleep fine, but they wake up at 1, 2, 3 or 4 in the morning, wide awake, mind racing, body restless. That's often the stress system kicking in when it should be quiet. So instead of dropping into a deeper sleep, the body shifts back into a more alert state. Now here's the problem. If that keeps on happening night after night, you don't get proper recovery. And without deep sleep, the adrenals don't get a chance to reset. So fatigue builds, stress tolerance drops, and the whole cycle keeps on feeding itself. That's why sleep isn't just nice to have, it's one of the main ways the body actually repairs and restores itself. There's some simple things that can make a big difference here in regards to sleep. Going to bed at the same time, dimming the lights at night, getting the screens out of the bedroom, all helps maintain the body into that proper melatonin rhythm. Now light, it's a big one. Most people sit under bright white lights at night or on their phones or watching their screens. And that type of light tells the brain, it's daytime, stay alert. So melatonin doesn't rise properly. Whereas the softer warm lights, like the old incandescent yellow type style lighting, or these days I think they call it warm lighting, is far less stimulating to the brain and helps the body wind down properly. Now, in clinic, when someone comes in with this pattern, they're exhausted, but they can't switch off, or they're waking throughout the night with that wired feeling. I don't mess around trying to piece things together slowly. I go straight to calming the stress response. And that's where I'll use Naturovital Cortisol Calm. Typically 7.5 ml twice a day, but if they're really wired and they can't switch off or they're highly stressed, I'll push that up to 10 ml 2 or 3 times a day. Now, if poor sleep and fatigue have been going on for some time, I'll also bring in the Naturovital Adrenal support. Alongside that, I'll support the nervous system directly, and magnesium's a big one here. It's one of the key minerals for the nervous system, and it's often referred to as the lullaby mineral. So I'll use Naturovital Mag XL to help settle that nervous tension. And if they're waking at night or they're unable to fall asleep, that can point to more of an imbalance in the neurotransmitters, in particular GABA, the body's major relaxing, calming, tranquilizing neurotransmitter. And that plays a big role in helping all of us maintain sleep throughout the night. So if I see that type of problem, I may also give them Naturovital Be Calm, 20 minutes before bed, possibly also with some L-glycine, amino acid L-glycine. And the reason's quite simple. We're trying to take the pressure off the nervous system so the body can actually switch off on its own. Because once that starts happening, sleep deepens, recovery improves, and everything upstream, including the adrenals, start to settle down. And you feel better. Trust me, we all feel better after a good night's sleep. Just imagine having 5 of them in a row. It'd be fantastic. Okay, one that I usually, but people don't like to hear this next section, and that's caffeine and sugar. But it's borrowed energy. So when people are running on empty, caffeine and sugar are usually the one they lean on to get through the day. A coffee in the morning to get going, another one mid-morning, just top it up, and then something sweet in the afternoon when they hit the wall. I understand why people do it, but trust me, it's not a great habit. And yes, it works in the short term. But what you're actually doing underneath the surface is very, very different. Every time you have caffeine, you're stimulating the nervous system. You're pushing the adrenals to release more adrenaline and more cortisol just to get you through. So instead of fixing the low energy, you're overriding it. You're basically telling the body, keep going. I know you're tired, but we got to keep going anyway. It's like a jockey trying to whip a horse, getting it over the line in a horse race, and the body will do it for a while, but it will come as a cost because the energy that the caffeine and sugar produce isn't real, it's borrowed. So what happens next is where people really start to feel it. And after the spike, there's a drop. Cortisol falls, energy dips, and then the crash hits. That afternoon wall feeling, that flat drain feeling, and that's when people reach for the next coffee or something else sweet just to pick them back up again. But over time, that becomes a pattern, and I hear people saying, look, I just can't function without coffee. And again, that's not willpower. That's the body becoming reliant on a stimulation to keep it going. Now, in clinic, this is one of the first things I look at. And if someone's clearly stressed, wired, exhausted, I take them off coffee. It's as simple as that. And yeah, there's usually some pushback. People love their coffee. But if the nervous system is already overworked, adding more stimulation on top of that keeps the whole cycle going. So instead we shift the focus, we support the body properly so energy starts to come back in more stable ways. That means eating properly, not skipping meals, and keeping your blood sugar in a normal range. So, along with coffee, sugar goes as well. A lot of sugar. I'll just have that Monster energy drink, or I'll just have that, chocolate bar or that little cake and biscuits. Unfortunately, they go, but we'll come to that. So what we're actually doing is giving the body what it needs to make energy instead of just flogging the hell out of it. Now, there's things like magnesium that help calm that tired, wired feeling and ease tension. And it's also the mineral that gives the battery inside every single cell the spark it needs to produce energy. So obviously important, and B vitamins, which are heavily involved in how the body produces energy. Now, both of those are very important. Low energy, relying on sugar and coffee, crashing throughout the day. When I see those type of symptoms, I'll bring in Naturovital Mag XL for the magnesium and Naturovital B Complete, which also has ashwagandha in it, so it supports the adrenal glands as well. Now, this gives the body the raw materials it needs to create energy, instead of focusing on forcing to push it through the day, because the goal isn't to keep on propping yourself up with stimulation. It's to get to a point where energy is actually there without needing coffee and sugar to prop you up and keep you going. Adrenals and menopause. Now, this is a big one, and it's something I talk a lot about in clinic because a lot of women are never told how much the adrenals actually influence menopause. And I've had the benefit of seeing this across generations. I spoke with my grandmother, my mother-in-law, and my mum. All three of them, 5 children, all three of them stay-at-home mums. So I asked them about menopause. And honestly, none of them really remembered having any major issues. Maybe the odd flush here and there. I remember mum saying to me, she said, I think I had a flush, but it was in the middle of summer. It was 40 degrees and I was standing over the stove cooking, so I can't be 100% sure. I'd flush, and I'm male. Now, as I said, these women were stay-at-home mums. They worked hard, they raised family, and they ran households. But they didn't have the same constant ongoing stress that many women are under today. And that's where things start to change, because menopause just isn't about the ovaries slowing down. That's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. As the ovaries decide that they want to retire and go on holidays, the body still needs some level of hormonal support. And that's where the adrenals come in. They produce precursor hormones, things like DHEA, which the body can then convert into small amounts of estrogen and other hormones. So in a way, when the ovaries take that long-awaited trip, the adrenals are asked to pick up the load and help. Now, here's the problem. If someone spent 20, 30 or 40 years under constant stress, poor sleep, running on caffeine, running on adrenaline, pushing through fatigue, those adrenal glands are already under pressure. So when menopause comes along, they don't have the capacity to step up and help the body the way they need to. And that's when symptoms start to hit harder. Hot flushes can be more intense, night sweats as well. Night sweats that can disturb sleep, mood swings, anxiety, irritability, fatigue that doesn't lift. And it's not just the drop in hormones driving that. Stress plays a big role here. Because elevated cortisol, your main stress hormone, can make menopausal symptoms worse and harder to manage. So you've got two things happening at once: hormones decline and the stress system that's not coping in the way it should. That combination is what a lot of women are feeling. Now in clinic, this is something I'm very mindful of, because when someone's heading into menopause or they're already there and their stress levels are high, we need to deal with that first. That's not optional. That's where everything starts. So if someone is really wired, stressed, not sleeping properly, anxious, running on empty, I'll usually bring in Naturovital Cortisol Calm, typically 7.5 ml twice a day. But if they're really stressed and overworked, I'll bump that up to 10 ml 2 or 3 times a day. Once that stress response starts to settle, we can swap them over to Naturovital Adrenal Support to help rebuild and support that system properly. And alongside that, I'll use Naturovital Perimenopausal Support or Menopausal Support, depending where the woman is in the stage of her hormonal decline. And the reason for doing that is simple. If the stress system is still overactive, the body can't respond to anything else you give it. So we calm things down first, then support and rebuild. Because when the adrenal glands are supported properly, sleep improves, moods settle, and the body handles hormonal fluctuations more comfortably. Adrenals and immunity. This is something a lot of people notice, but they don't always connect the dots. They go through a stressful period, work, life, pressure, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they get sick. They pick up a cold or something lingers that they just can't shake. And it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's not random. When the body's under stress, it shifts priorities. It focuses on getting through whatever is in front of you. So your energy and resources are diverted away from long-term repair and, importantly, the immune system, because in the short term, survival comes first. But if that stress keeps on going, the immune system doesn't get the support it needs. And that's when you become more susceptible. You pick things up easier and you don't bounce back as quickly. Now there's another layer to this which is really important. The adrenal glands themselves use a lot of vitamin C. In fact, they hold some of the highest concentrations of vitamin C in the body, and they use it heavily during the stress response. So when you're under ongoing stress, you're burning through vitamin C at a much higher rate, and that creates a bit of a double hit, because vitamin C isn't just for the adrenal glands, it's critical for the immune system. It helps support immune cell function, helps the body deal with oxidative stress, which is essentially cell damage, and plays a major role in fighting off infections. So if your adrenal glands are using more of it, there's less available for your immune system. And that's part of the reason people get run down and they get more prone to getting sick after stress. Now, on top of that, vitamin D also plays a role here. It helps regulate the immune response. It keeps inflammation from getting out of control, because after long-term stress, the body stays in a more inflamed, reactive state. So bringing vitamin D back up helps calm that down and supports proper immune function. Now in clinic, when someone is in this pattern, they've been under stress, they're run down, and they usually get sick and are not recovering properly, I'll bring in Naturovital liposomal C and D, generally 5 ml once or twice a day, depending on how depleted they are. Alongside that, I'll bring in Naturovital Immune Boost to help rebuild and strengthen the immune function more broadly. And the reason is simple. You're replacing what the stress has been burning through. You're supporting the adrenals. And at the same time, you're giving the immune system what it needs to actually do its job. Because until you do that, the body is just trying to keep up without the resources that it needs. And that's when people get stuck in that cycle of stress, fatigue, and getting sick. The adrenals and aging. Now, this is an important one because a lot of people just accept how they feel as getting old. Low energy, not recovering like they used to, poor sleep, feel worn out even after resting, and they just go, oh, well, I'm getting older. But a lot of the time, age is not doing that. It's got nothing to do with it. It's what's happened to the body over the last 10, 20 or 30 years, because aging itself doesn't wear down the body in the way that people think. chronic stress does. When the body spends years in this flight or fight mode, constantly producing cortisol, it slows down your ability to repair, recover, and maintain energy. And we know that's just not theory. Long-term stress has been linked to increased inflammation, poor recovery, and the accelerating aging process on the body. And yes, it does show up things like wrinkles and grey hair. You can't see that. So over time, what you start to see is slower healing of wounds, less stamina, more energy, and you feel like you're not bouncing back the way that you used to. And again, people think, that's just age. But often, it's the adrenal system that's been pushed for decades without proper recovery. Now, the good news, this can improve. So when you start supporting the system properly, energy becomes more stable, you feel more clearer, and recovery improves even in someone that's a bit older. Now, in clinic, this is the pattern I generally see. They're run down, they've been pushing for years, and they feel like they've just lost their edge. So I don't rely on just one thing. We need to support the system in layers because it's been going on for a long time. Firstly, we calm the stress response. If someone is still that wired and stressed and under pressure, I'll go use Naturovital Cortisol Calm to bring that down. And I'll also bring in Naturovital Adrenal Support, typically 7.5 ml twice a day for both of those, to help rebuild the system properly. Generally with 2 tonics, I will always have one taken 20 minutes to 30 minutes apart. So one before breakfast, one after breakfast, or if you can't manage that, half an hour between each tonic. Because, we're working on 2 different things and we don't actually know if we chuck them all in the same thing, what they actually do. But I digress. Sorry about that. Now, from here, we support the nervous system and energy production with things like magnesium alongside B vitamins. So again, Naturovital Mag XL and Naturovital B Calm. And then we look at reducing the wear and tear that happens over time. Things like inflammation, oxidative stress, which is rusting of the cells, cell damage, and recovery. Now, that's where things like omega-3s, fish oil, is very beneficial, and anti-inflammatory herbs and antioxidant-rich foods. Now, for that, I can give people Naturovital Omega Care Plus, high-potency pure fish oil, or Naturovital inflammatory support to downregulate the inflammation, and Naturovital antioxidant support to help stop that rusting going on within the cells. Now, we don't have everything all at once. We don't have a list like this long. We go through, we calm the body, and there's certain techniques that we do to help with that as well, which I'll explain later. And then we balance the adrenals. We give the body the nutrients it needs, and then we start to give it the support so it can start to repair. Now, because aging isn't just about getting older, it's about how well the body's repairing, adapting, and keep on going, or keeping up. Now, when you support those systems properly, as I've just mentioned, the body just doesn't survive better, it ages better. Adrenals and blood pressure. Because blood pressure is another area where the adrenals play a much bigger role than most people realise. At a basic level, your body is constantly trying to do one thing: keep enough blood moving to your brain and vital organs no matter what you're doing. To do that, it relies on 2 key controls: how much fluid you're holding onto and how tight or relaxed your blood vessels are. And this is where the adrenals come in. They influence both of those through hormones like aldosterone and cortisol. Aldosterone, as we've mentioned previously, controls how much sodium you retain through the kidneys, and whenever sodium goes up, fluid follows. So if you hold on to sodium, you hold on to fluid and your blood volume increases, blood pressure rises. Lose sodium, lose fluid, blood pressure drops, blood volume drops, I should say, and so does blood pressure. And that's your volume control. And then you've got cortisol. Cortisol helps your blood vessels respond properly, tightening when it needs to maintain pressure, like increasing pressure, and relaxing when we need to lower blood pressure. That's your blood vessel control through cortisol. And here's the point that most people miss. Blood pressure isn't meant to sit at one fixed number. It's meant to adjust constantly throughout the day. When you stand up, it adjusts. When you move, it adjusts. When you're stressed, it adjusts. When this system is working well, you don't notice it. But when the adrenals have been under prolonged stress, their ability to regulate hormones like aldosterone and cortisol becomes less consistent. So the body loses its ability to retain the right amount of sodium and fluid and keep that vessel tone consistent and adapt to these small changes in movement, stress, more calmly. That's when symptoms start to show up, not as a fixed blood pressure problem, but as a regulation problem. And this is where people notice things like feeling lightheaded when standing, drop in energy in the morning, feeling flushed or wired later in the day, pressure in the head, pounding heartbeat, and when they take their blood pressure, it's low, the next day it's high, or morning or afternoon, the readings are all over the shop. This is one important distinction. A lot of people think I've got blood pressure problems. But quite often what they have is a system that is struggling to keep the blood pressure more stable. Now, here's how I approach that in clinic. When I see this pattern, especially someone that tends to run on the lower side, their blood pressure runs on the lower side, they get dizzy, they crave salt, they feel flat and depleted, it points back to the adrenals. In that situation, I often use Naturopath adrenal support, typically 7.5 ml twice a day. Now, one of the key herbs in adrenal support is licorice, which helps the body hold on to sodium and maintain fluid balance, making it easier to keep blood pressure more stable. Now, this is an important note, a very important note. Licorice is not appropriate for someone that has consistently elevated blood pressure. In someone with blood pressure that's high most of the time, that blood pressure needs to be properly assessed before taking anything that may raise it further. Because if you're taking licorice, I can guarantee you, if your blood pressure was there, you're going to take licorice, you're going to hold on to more sodium, more fluid, your blood pressure is going to go up to there. Okay, so no licorice, no licorice. So the approach of supporting the adrenals works most powerfully when the blood pressure tends to run low or fluctuates throughout the day. It can be high, low, high, low, high, low. That's the adrenals trying to get some regulation, or symptoms that suggest that the body is struggling to maintain pressure. You get up, you faint. There's definitely not enough blood pressure to your head, but you get that, oh, hang on. I've got to steady myself against the wall. That's the low blood pressure. That's the adrenals trying to regulate. Alongside this, we come back to foundations that support the body and the adrenals more effectively. So drinking fluid across the day, just not relying on, I'm thirsty, I'll have a glass of water. Getting up, having a glass of water. Having a glass of water mid-morning. Having another glass of water half an hour before lunch. Having a glass of water half an hour after lunch. Having a glass of water mid-afternoon. Having a glass of water when you get home. Having a glass of water after dinner, half an hour after dinner. We want to take it away from food. We don't want to dilute that stomach acid. But all of a sudden you've just had 8 glasses of water. You're not sitting there trying to scull 1 litre of water. That's not good. So you're having consistent water throughout the day, and so you're keeping your fluid balances up. And that helps maintain adequate sodium and minerals. Mention this one. Getting consistent restorative sleep so the adrenals can rest and reset. Reducing ongoing stress where possible, so the system isn't constantly being pushed. Because when you stabilise the system overall, the body becomes much better at maintaining blood volume within a healthy range all on its own. Resetting the stress response. Now, this might sound simple, but it's one of the most effective ways to take pressure off your adrenal glands, and that's breathing. Now, most people don't realise this, but the way we breathe is constantly telling your brain what state you're in. If you breathe fast, shallow, and up in the chest, your brain reads that as, something's not quite right. We better stay alert. So that stress response stays switched on, and adrenaline stays elevated, cortisol stays elevated, and the body never gets a chance to settle. Unfortunately, a lot of people are stuck in this state all day, every day, without even realising it. The good news is this works both ways. Now, when you slow your breathing down and bring it in through your nose, let it drop into your belly, you send the opposite signal. You say, hey, we're safe. We can switch off now. And when that happens, the body starts to shift. Adrenaline goes down. Cortisol goes down. And the nervous system moves out of that constant alert, what's going on state, and relaxes. or calms down. Now, this isn't some sort of relaxation technique. This is direct input into the system that controls your stress response. You're literally changing the signals that go into your brain. So something as simple as your breath can change how much stress hormones your body is producing. That's pretty powerful. That's amazing, really, when you think of it. Now, you don't just need to sit there for half an hour and focus on your breathing. If I did that, I'd get stressed out, So as humans, we always seem to overcomplicate. As humans, we always seem to overcomplicate things. Slow down. Too much coming in here, trying to get out there. Tongue can't keep up. So all we need is a few minutes once or twice a day, and do it properly. And it's enough to start shifting that input into the brain. So it's quite simple. Slowly breathe in through your nose. Let your belly expand. Hold it for a couple of seconds. And then breathe out longer than you've breathed in. Now, in clinic, this is something I always bring in. And I always constantly ask, how's the breathing going? Oh yeah, I did it a couple of days. Get back and do it every day. Nasty. Carry a big stick. Carefrontational. Now, I always bring this in when someone's stressed, tense, anxious, can't switch off. They're very nervy. Because the reality is, if the body is constantly being told to stay alert, switched on, it doesn't matter what supplements you take. You don't get proper recovery. So this becomes one of the key tools to take the pressure off and lower that constant stress signal and allow the body to actually reset. Once that happens, everything starts to work better. Sleep improves, nutrients get utilised properly, the adrenals get a good chance to recover. Because at that point, you're not pushing the system anymore. You're removing the load that drives the problem in the first place, that constant switched on signal. And that's when people start to notice a shift. More energy, more sleep, and less reactivity throughout the day. Now, doing it, Greg, I did it for 3 days. Yeah. Mate, got to do it for a week at least. You can do it for 30 days. You will go, oh my God, I can't believe how much my sleep is better. A few years ago now, I was quite stressed out and I had a little garden. I used to go in there on a rock and sit there every day and just breathe in and out. And there was all roses around me, so that was quite nice. And then I'd stop and smell the roses and breathe. And so I spend, 4 or 5 minutes just sitting in the sun early, first thing in the morning and breathing. And I could not believe how much my sleep improved. Before that, I'd wake up with this dry mouth, so I must have been snoring. After that, after doing it for a week or two, I wake up in the morning and my lips were sealed shut. So I was nose breathing. I thought, man, that's fantastic. Wife loved it. So anyway, it has more benefits just than, calming the nervous system down. So, and energy obviously did improve. And you felt calmer, weren't as reactive, not as a cranky person, as you sometimes can be when you're under stress. Now, where am I going to go with this? Okay, natural support for the adrenals. Let's focus on that. Now, when it comes to supporting the adrenals, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think they need to boost their energy. But if your system is already stressed and already overworked, the last thing it needs to do is push harder. Just think of it when you think of it yourself. You're tired, you're exhausted. Do you go out and dig a hole? No. You relax. You lie down on the lounge or you chill lying by the side of the pool or something like that. What we're trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to take the pressure off and give the body what it needs to recover. Because the adrenal glands already know what to do. They've been doing it your whole life. They just need the space, the support to get back there. Now in clinic, when I see someone who's been under stress for a long time, low energy, poor recovery, feeling tired, all that sort of stuff, we don't go chasing quick fixes. The breathing. Obviously, supporting the adrenal glands itself, which is the Naturovital adrenal support, I'll use. And I like that tonic because it doesn't stimulate anything. It supports the system, the adrenals as a whole. So it doesn't push energy. It helps the body regulate itself. Now, alongside that, I'll always most probably put in a few key nutrients, magnesium, vitamin C, B vitamins. I've mentioned them previously, because the body burns through these quickly when under stress. It's like when you're stressed, magnesium just floats out the window. Vitamin C's gone. Vitamin C and vitamin B are water soluble anyway, so you drink them, they only last 4-6 hours in the body, and then they're gone. They've got a lot of jobs to do, and if the adrenals are stealing them all, they don't do a job for anything else. They don't create energy. They don't strengthen the immune system. So important. So we're not forcing energy, we're rebuilding it. And that's a really important distinction, because once the system, the adrenals, start to recover, energy becomes more stable, sleep improves, and that constant wired but tired feeling starts to settle. And that's where people start to feel like themselves again. So the takeaway from all of this is, when you step back and look at it all, if you're running on empty, relying on coffee to get through the day, craving salt, not sleeping properly, or you're just not coping the way you normally would, there's usually a reason for it. And a lot of the time, it comes back to the adrenals being under more load than they can comfortably handle. These glands have been working your whole life. Every stressful period, every late night, every naughty thing that you put into your body, everything you've pushed through, they've been trying to keep up with you, but eventually that catches up. Now, the good news, we've already mentioned it, but I'll go through it again. Things can be turned around. Doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't need to be anything extreme. It needs to go back to basics. Do simple, consistent things properly. Eat regularly. Get proper sleep. Slow down, calm, relax. Slow the system down where you can. Breathing, breathing, breathing. And using the right nutrients and herbs to support recovery. Sometimes part of recovery is doing things that actually make you feel human again. You don't want to be going, oh, I've got to do this. You want to be regimented. You want to do things that make you feel human. Going outside, connecting with nature, going for a walk, doing something that you enjoy doing, having a laugh, giving your body a break from go, 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 go. So if there's something in life that gives you joy, it could be painting that you can't do because you're too stressed. It could be hot air ballooning. It could be jumping out of a plane, but that may raise adrenaline. It would raise mine. Do something that brings you joy, that makes you feel good without stimulating adrenaline. Because when you do that, the body starts to shift. Energy becomes more available, and you're not riding those highs and crashes. Sleep improves, you start to feel more like yourself, and that's the real goal. Not pushing harder and not overriding the signals, but getting your body back to a point where it's working with you, not against you. Because when your adrenals are supported properly, everything else feels easier to handle. Well, hopefully you've learnt something today, and you've gone, oh, that's interesting, and there's some things that you can adapt into your life. So until next time, this is Greg. Live life and laugh loud.